Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to another gameplay video, and yes, I want to revisit Eyes. I did a video, an introduction video, I believe back in July, and so it hasn't been that long, but it has been a few months. And the reason I want to revisit it is because I have been super addicted to this game. I've been playing it non-stop, and I have to admit I've gotten quite a bit better at it, and I've learned a lot of new things and some new tips and tricks. So my game's gotten a lot better, and so I thought I would treat this kind of like an advanced video, or tips and tricks, or advanced strategies, kind of like a part 2, getting a little more in depth into how to really play this game well. Because back in July, when I was doing kind of the introduction to this, I think my high score, I didn't even break 300,000, and since that time, I mean, my average score now, ranges anywhere between 8 to 10 times that score. So, I mean, I've gotten quite a bit better. So I wanted to kind of cover some of the more advanced patterns and strategies and, tips and tricks and things that will make you a better player at this game and get you kind of past a lot of those early hurdles. So before I actually start playing this game, I thought it would be a little bit easier for me to kind of cover a lot of those topics by illustrating them. So why don't we kind of get into the basics, and then we can start talking about more advanced strategies and tips and stuff like that. So yeah, let's jump right into it.
Okay, so every level has 36 bonus objects, and these are basically the pulsing dots or pellets that you see on the maze that you need to clear in order to finish the level. And it's also where you get the most amount of points. Then you've got 4 or 5 enemy eyes. There's 4 on the first 2 levels, and then every level after that there's a 5th, and these are the enemies that are out to get you, basically. So between those guys and the bonus objects, that's everything that's on the maze, and also where your scoring is going to come into play. So, let's move on. Here's how the points and scoring works. According to the manual, every enemy eye is worth 100 points multiplied by the maze number. Every bonus object is worth 500 points multiplied by the maze number. But in reality, that's not the case. Now, I'm not sure if there was a ROM revision or what kind, maybe there's some changes that were made after the manual was printed. But there's a table in there like this, and it gives basically a point breakdown. Now, if you look at the bonus objects and then you compare it with, in reality, what you're getting awarded for the bonus objects, there's quite a big difference, especially if you look at the later levels, like level 8. It's almost half of what the manual has it printed as. So again, I'm not sure what kind of changes maybe were made, or if there was a different, ROM version that had different, point values for bonus objects, but the enemy eyes, it's the same. So you are getting 100 points multiplied by the maze number, but the bonus objects is where the difference is. But, even with these lower point values, if you look at the bonus objects and compare it with enemy eyes, you can see that all of your points are really in those bonus objects, and that should be your focus. And we'll talk about that once I get to talking about the strategies and what have you. But ultimately, point pressing really isn't a big factor in this game. Anyways, so let's talk some strategies. And I just want to point out that these are just my strategies, my tips and tricks that I've developed just from playing the game a lot. So by no means are these the law. I mean, you don't have to follow these. And, truth be told, there's probably some better strategies out there I just don't know about yet. So just keep that in mind. So to start with, you want to clear the mazes as quickly as possible. Get to level 8, because level 8 is where all the points are. And once you get to level 8 is just going to repeat after you clear it. So that's where all the points are, and that should be your goal. Don't worry about, point pressing. And that leads to this one. Avoid killing as many enemies as possible. Now, this is a little counterintuitive because there are points awarded for killing the enemies, but there really aren't that many. And every time you kill these enemies, they're going to get smarter and harder to avoid. So just keep that in mind. Now, enemies can be controlled to some degree, and what I mean by this is that since the enemies are always going to be following you, you can kind of use that to your advantage. And I will demonstrate this a little bit when we get to the gameplay. Patterns are not limited, and what I mean by this is that there are several different ways to clear a maze. And I've witnessed several different patterns, and many of them are way different than the patterns that I use. So that's one cool thing about this game, is that, there are several different ways to approach it. So keep that in mind. You don't have to follow my patterns. Maybe you have a better one. And then last thing is just kind of a note that I made. And I truly feel that the real skill in this game is in a player's ability to improvise, because there are many times when a particular pattern or something goes wrong, an enemy acts strange, does something that you're not really prepared for, and your ability to improvise and make adjustments on the fly is really crucial. And I really feel like that is where the skill lies in this game. So that's just kind of a note I made for myself, and something to keep in mind, that get good at improvising. Okay, so I've got 3 main patterns that I use in the game. I have one that I use for levels 2 through 6, one for 7, and one for Maze 8. And the one for 2 through 6 is basically the same general pattern. There are some minor tweaks, but for the most part, it's the same general pattern. And then after 6, for level 7, I have one that's specific just for 7, and one specifically for Maze 8. I don't have one for Maze 1 because it's such a simple level. You don't really need a pattern for that stage. The enemies are pretty dumb. They fire real slow. So these are my 3 main patterns that I'm going to focus on. So why don't we get right into it? All right, so here's my first pattern. I'll just use level 5 for an example, but basically it's the same pattern for 2 through 6. I just want to start out by clearing out this bottom area down here. And by going left to right, the idea is to control this guy at the top and get him to go down this right column. That way I can just blast all the way up to the top here without getting shot. And the enemies are now bunched up down here. So I can just proceed to kind of stair step my way all the way to the right and kind of on the outside edge down here. And by the time I'm down here, the enemies are all bunched up on the right side. So now I can just stair step my way to the left outer side. And by the time I get in the center here by these 3 dots, the enemies are all the way on the left side here. So it's basically a piece of cake. I can just clear out these last 3 dots and, that's the end of the stage. And like I said, there's some very minor differences perhaps between like levels 4 and 5, but for the most part, levels 2 through 6, it's all the same general pattern. And this is the one I use, all the way up through level 6. So it's pretty foolproof, but the concept's basically the same. So yeah, that's pattern 1. Okay, so my pattern for Maze 7 is where things start to differ quite a bit. I do start the same as before. I clear out the bottom bonus objects, the left then the right, and just like before, I want this enemy at the top here to follow this column. And just like before, I'm going to bolt up here, clearing out all these bonus objects. And once I get to the top, though, I can't move to the right because I'm going to get shot by the enemies. They're smarter and they're faster now. So I'm going to have to wait for the enemies to get up there so I can take them out. In the meantime, I'll clear out these bonus objects. And then once the enemies are up here, ideally, I want to clear out 3 of the 4 on the right, and then I'll get the one on the left here. And once I get the one on the left, I'm going to go down that column and clear out as many of these bonus objects as I can before the enemies respawn. And that leaves me about here, and the enemies are about here. So since I'm kind of cornered, I'm going to have to take out these 2 that are in my face, and then that 3rd enemy off to the right. And then I can stair step my way up here just in time to save myself from the enemies that are respawning. So that leaves me up at the top. And let's see here. So we've got 2 more enemies I'm going to have to take out now. So I'll clear these guys out. And then I'll move to the left as fast as I can and take out that enemy. That way I can bolt all the way back down and take out the remaining bonus objects, and as well as the one all the way off to the right here. And that's basically level 7. Now, with that in mind, I try to follow this pattern as closely as possible, but I find that with this maze, I have to improvise the most out of all of the mazes. So sometimes it doesn't end the same way as far as the route I'm taking, but for the most part, that's the pattern I follow. So that's Maze 7. So my pattern for Maze 8 is quite a bit different, and I think it's actually a little bit simpler than Maze 7. But I'm going to actually start on the right this time, and then the left because I want this enemy to go down this column. And then what I'm going to do is take out this enemy here and this enemy here and cruise all the way up, clearing out all these bonus objects, and then all the way up to the top here. And once I get up there, I have to wait just a brief second because the enemies have respawned at this time. And I'm going to have to clear them out again. So I'm going to have to take out these two guys right here, as well as this one. And once I do that, I can stair-step my way down, clearing out all these bonus objects before the enemies respawn. And they're going to respawn on the right side anyway, so I'm pretty safe taking out all of these. Once I'm here, though, I'm going to have to wait a little bit. I like to wait and see what the enemies do, and I may have to kill a couple before taking out these last remaining bonus objects. But that's basically it. I mean, once I'm down here, I'm pretty much, home free. So, like I said, I think this pattern is actually a little bit simpler than the one I used for Maze 7. And I guess that's a good thing because level 8 just continuously repeats after the first wave. So once you get good at kind of utilizing this general pattern or any pattern for that matter, you're pretty much home free because that's where all the points are, and you're just going to keep playing the same level over and over again. So, anyways, that's the pattern I use for Maze 8.
All right, so hopefully that made some sense. I tried to convey everything as crystal clear as possible, but anytime I'm doing these animations and stuff like that, I'm not sure how much information is really conveyed or makes sense. So I'm going to play a couple games now, and the first game I will try to narrate my way through so I can kind of explain what's going on. I mean, most of everything that you see in these games is what we were just talking about, the patterns and, how I go about, building up a score. So hopefully it's kind of a review, but, doing the animations is one thing, but seeing it in action is another. So I thought it'd make sense to do a couple games. The first one, I'll try to talk my way through. I probably won't get a great score because I'm terrible at multitasking. So first game I'll try to narrate my way through, and then I'll do another game where I'll just focus on trying to get a big score. So, in the previous video, in the previous video, my games were lasting, maybe 5 minutes. And now, because my scores have improved, they last anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes. So I'm only going to do 2 of those because otherwise it's just going to get to be too long of a video. So anyways, enough chatting. Let's get a couple games in here. All right. Let's see. All right, so level 1. Again, I don't really have a pattern for this. You really shouldn't be dying. These enemies are pretty stupid. There's only 4 of them. And, it takes them like a good 1.5 seconds to fire on you. So I just try to cover every bonus object as fast as possible. Don't really spend hardly any time on this stage. Actually, if I get anywhere close to 20,000, I've been on the stage too long. So most of the time I end that stage with about, 19 and a half. All right, so stage 2, there's still only 4 enemies, but they are significantly smarter. They will fire fairly quickly. So this is where I start using my pattern. All right, so stage 3 is the first stage where there's 5 guys, and they are not very smart at all. And the guy at the top went down the wrong column, so I actually am just doing a reverse pattern. And again, these guys aren't very, very smart because it's the first stage they've introduced the 5th guy. But being able to improvise like this is kind of where all the skill lies. 4th stage, I'm going to use my first pattern that we talked about. And I'm going to double back like that. That'll get the bottom guy, this guy here, to go in a better direction. And now I'm actually forced to kill these guys. It doesn't always happen, but on this stage, for some reason, they follow a strange pattern. 5th stage, same pattern again. And usually, on this stage, I can clear every bonus object without having to kill an enemy. And so far, these guys are following pretty much a cookie cutter routine. This is pretty much exactly where I want them to be. So there you have it. 6th stage, I actually have to sprint up here a little bit faster. I don't spend as much time on the bottom, because if I do that, these guys are going to follow a different pattern. And it's going to be very tough for me to get through the entire stage without dying. So, all right. 7th stage, here's where my pattern starts to change, and hopefully I can get through it. Okay, so I want to kill this guy. There we go. Now I had to improvise a little bit. Normally I like to go into that little crevice, but enemies were not behaving. Alright, should be able to get up here. I mistimed that. Alright. Should be okay. There we go. Alright, 8th stage. Now this is where the pattern changes, especially at the bottom. Okay, looking good. So I'm going to clear out this area, and now I have to kill these 2 guys and this 3rd one. Now I can pretty much just work my way around this left side here. I'm going to have to kill both these guys, and now I'm pretty much home free. I'm just going to shoot up these 3 guys here, and this one. Boom. And now the 8th stage just keeps repeating. So we're sitting pretty good. We're just going to follow the same pattern, and hopefully I can split these guys up. Sometimes you can split those first 2 enemies up, and that makes it a lot easier to shoot, because it's a lot harder to shoot these guys when they're all clumped together. Woo, getting close. Now it's just rinse and repeat. There you go. So we split those 2 guys up, and again, it's so much easier to shoot 1 guy versus 2 that are clumped together. There's less room for error. And this guy's gonna follow me down here. Again, I don't really like to linger too long on these stages. All the points are in the dots now. And they should be worth about 2,200 points. Ooh, that was too close. It sounds funny, but actually one of the biggest skills to develop is knowing exactly where the contacts on a leaf switch make contact. Because if you know that, you can get better at pressing the fire button and faster at it. And, you know, the difference between a leaf button and a micro switch is that you can adjust leaf switches. I mean, they are quiet, you know, they make less noise than the micro switch, but you can kind of adjust them. And mine's, the contacts are about halfway through. So I don't actually push the button all the way down. I only push about halfway down, and then I just kind of use the spring to keep firing the button. You know, I kind of, almost like a trampoline. Now I did miss this dot, this second one right here, and sometimes that can change everything up like it is right now. That was pretty close. So like even just missing one of these dots can really change up your entire game. And let's see, we're almost at 900,000. There we are. And this game actually rolls at 1,000,000 points. So the score will actually go back to 0 after I hit 1,000,000 points. Which kind of stinks, because I was going to get a high score save kit, meaning that when I turn the game off, typically the scores reset. But the kit allows the scores to save after the game's powered off. And I was going to get one of those kits installed so I could save my scores, but with the game losing those scores, rolling the scores at 1,000,000 points, it's kind of like, what's the purpose? So I've actually just been recording videos of my high scores, because that's about the only way you can prove that you got a huge score. All right, we're sitting pretty good. Again, that's ideal if you can split those guys up, and it's such strict timing. But anyways, I was getting at, if I can get, 1,000,000 points and still have 4 or 5 guys, that's pretty darn good. Up to this point, it comes down to how long can you perfectly maintain your pattern, or, continue to improvise. Because you only get 4 extra lives. It maxes out at 4. So it's not like Nibbler or some of these games where you can really marathon because you keep getting extra lives. You get 4 and that's it. Which is, I think, a good thing. Alright. One thing I hope is pretty apparent is that you never stop firing in this game. There's no reason not to. You don't have a limited amount of shots, and you have to shoot everything. So it's like, why would you ever stop firing? If you have an enemy spawn in a place that you're not expecting, you're going to have to shoot them. So, and at this point, they're firing so quick that it's pretty much quick draw. That's about as close to point pressing as I get. I just clear out the enemies at the end. All right. Yeah, and being able to fire fast like that, it comes in probably the most crucial when you've got a clump of enemies. One enemy at a time, no problem, but being able to rapidly fire is key for a big score. All right, try to get this guy to come down here. I always linger there a little bit because sometimes those guys change up their pattern with how they approach you. Sometimes they'll just sit up there, sometimes they'll attack you right away. I believe the world record for this game is a little over 4 million points, and that's on Orcade's website. And Orcade is basically the new Twin Galaxies, so to speak. I mean, Twin Galaxies still exists, but I was talking with a couple guys that actually worked for them, and a lot of the really early high scores, the ones from the early 80s, were kind of on an honor system where they were just taking people's words for it. And the Eyes high scores were some of those. I think that the top score on that site is like 23 million, and that was recorded in like 82 or 83. And the dude I was talking to that worked for Twin Galaxies said, don't even believe it. So Orcade is brand new, and all their scores, they don't do videos, they don't do word of mouth. It's always refereed, so they're completely legit scores. So I'm going by that high score right now. Plus the settings, the dip switch settings for the Twin Galaxies score were pretty darn weird. I mean, the bonus life score requirement was like 50,000 instead of 75. There were a lot of differences, and they weren't the default settings. So, and that's what I'm running on, and that's what Orcade's running on. So I'm just going by Orcade's. But like I said, I believe their high score right now is a little over 4 million, and second place is a little over 2 million, which I've almost got now. So right now, that's kind of my goal, to get the world record. And of course, I'm not at an actual arcade, you know, with an arcade referee. So this is just kind of, you know, for my, I don't know, my amusement. But, you know, we had this event at Grinkers, which is in Eagle, Idaho, just this last weekend. And it was pretty cool. They had, his name's Clint. He was the official arcade referee for the tournament. And so he was recording all the scores, and they had an Eyes there. And so I'm thinking, you know, that's an annual event. Maybe I'll try for a world record at the next Grinkers, or Grink Fest. So that's kind of my goal, you know, keep playing this game, keep getting better, and hopefully I can set a world record next year. And actually, we're sitting pretty good. We're at, what is this, almost 2.2 million? And I haven't died yet. I probably just jinxed myself. Seems to happen quite a bit. But yeah, obviously you can just tell I'm just using the same pattern I developed here, and you know, just trying to complete it every stage, every 8th level here. It almost becomes kind of an endurance thing, but again, you know, the amount of lives I have right now, that's it. I'm not going to earn any more. Okay. Ooh, that was too close. I didn't get both of them right away. I was actually surprised I didn't die there. I would say that moment right there at the top with those two guys up here, that kind of makes or breaks whether or not I'm going to have trouble in the level. Because that's where I'm most likely to die. I always try to split those guys up, but again, it's very, very strict with the timing. I'm just going to take out this guy here. All right, we're at 2.5 million. Sitting pretty darn good. All right. Oof. I got to get that timing down a little bit better. Playing with fire. Yeah, and the reason why I clear those guys out is that it pushes my score to close to 100,000 for the stage. If you just go by the bonus objects, ooh, that was too close. If you just go by the bonus objects, it maxes out. You get about 80,000 points or so for the stage, and I like to clear the stage with about 100,000. So killing these last few guys kind of pushes my score close to that. I don't really point press much. That's about, you know, but killing the 5 guys at the end is about as close as it gets. And you know, this is stage 8, so every one of these enemies is about 800 points. So I mean, it's nothing compared to the bonus objects, but it's not terrible. I still don't think it's worth it to hang out on the stage and just shoot the enemies, especially with how many points you get for these bonus objects. And if you can keep doing this pattern, or any pattern for that matter, that works for you, you know, why not? You're going to get a much bigger score much quicker. Come on, get down here. All right. Sitting pretty good, almost at 3 million. Ah, missed that dot. Time to improvise. Uh-oh. Thought I had more time. See? Things can change pretty quick. Uh-oh. So always happens. Die once and you end up dying 3 times. Alright, there we go. Back on track. Alright, now we're sitting good. Woo! That was a curveball too. And that's why you wait a little bit in that little notch right there. So you can figure out what the enemies are going to do. Man, I missed that dot again. All right, 3.14. Gotta make sure I shoot this other dot here. Kind of makes or breaks the pattern. It's amazing actually how many ingredients there are, like how many things have to go right. So these enemies are acting a little strange right now. It's kind of hard to predict. I mean, even if you feel like the whole pattern's going right, they'll do something weird like that. All right, keep it up here. I'm actually having a really good game. Much better than I thought. Hopefully my banter isn't too boring. Just put it on mute. All right, 3.5 million. Hey, we're on our way. Not that this actually counts for the arcade score, but it'd be a nice little peace of mind. Ooh. At Grinkers, you know, that was only like a week or two ago that that event went on, and I think with the tournament excluded, while I was there, I think I could only get like 623,000. So this pattern for this 8th stage that I figured out is really new. Only within maybe the last week or so. So I think it was about 2 days or 3 days after Grinkers that this pattern kind of set into place. I know I'm giving away my quote-unquote secrets, but you know, with the internet and all the information that's out there, I figure, you know, why not? All it's going to do is promote more competition. So if you guys can use these patterns to your advantage, go for it. Maybe there'll be some groundbreaking world record. I'm sure there's better patterns than the ones I'm using. These are just the ones that I kind of developed on my own and just from playing the game so much. So it's not, you don't have to follow these. And I've seen, even at Grinkers, I saw some pretty darn cool patterns that were way different than mine. In fact, a guy by the name of Kalen, who actually got the high score for the tournament, which was like 776,000, he had a much different pattern than the ones that I use. And he was very good at obviously executing them. So I love that idea about this game, is that there's more than one way to approach the level and do a really good job at getting the high score. So it's not like Nibbler or like Pac-Man, where there's one pattern and one pattern alone that you need to follow. Ooh, I think we just got the world record. If it counted. You know, obviously I don't have a referee, but... But hey, let's just keep going. I don't think I'm going to be playing a second game. Uh-oh. Snoozing. Oh man, I'm gonna have to improvise. Hopefully. Okay, not too bad. Ooh, that was really close. All right. Uh-oh. Last life. Whew. Missed a pellet there. Shouldn't be a problem. All right. Come on. Missed it again. Gotta refine my sweet spot for the button presses. Okay, was it 4.5? I would really like 5 million, but I'm already satisfied. I tend to get too greedy. Still on this last life. right, get down here. Okay. About 2 more rounds, a little over. Ah, I shouldn't have said anything. Okay, so I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's only 3.8. I don't know. I'll have to revisit that. But you can see that, basically those general patterns that I came up with or figured out, those are what I stick with. And that's pretty much how the games typically go. Granted, this was one of my best games, if not my best game ever. But yeah, hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of how I play this game. Again, you don't need to follow my strategies, but that's just what I do to get decent games. So anyhow, that's about all I've got. Hopefully this video is not too long. Yeah, I thought I would just cover some of the more advanced strategies and tips and tricks and stuff that I use, and hopefully you guys can use this information to either develop your own strategies or copy mine. I don't care. So anyways, guys, that wraps it up, and I guess I'll see you the next time. Thanks for watching.